Hi, I'm Amber,
And I'm Kirsten.
and you're listening to
Lurking in the Shadows. Hi, everyone.
How's everybody doing? It's a regular old Thursday for us, just another recording day.
Yeah.
Today, the murder that I will be covering actually is a 4-person murder unsolved. I had never heard of it before until Kirsten had mentioned it. It is the yogurt shop murders. So, anything you want to add before I jump right into this?
Just if you didn't catch our Lurking in the News episode that we released, would have been last week now, I think. We're
Yeah, I
just
think so.
covering cases that are happening in the news. Whether it's a brand new case that's getting updates or an old case that has updates. There's a lot happening in true crime right now in the news. There's crazy people everywhere. So there's a lot more I want to cover. So we have 5 cases in that episode. So please check that out. Give us feedback. We're going to do a few more and see how it goes. But yeah, there's a lot happening in the true crime world right now.
Yeah, for sure. She keeps tagging me in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Like
So
whether it
you guys
be
will hear
horrible
about everything.
cases that happened or there's been things getting solved too. So it's good and bad.
Yeah, there's been positives too. So we're
Yeah.
definitely going to work on our next episode. So stay tuned for that because, like I said, there'll be positives. And we'll cover some things that still need attention and hopefully we can get resolved with some attention we can bring to it. All right, so my case today, the yogurt shop murders. So Jennifer Harbison, born May 9th, 1974, and Sarah Harbison, born October 28th, 1976, were sisters. Jennifer was a 17-year-old senior and the older sister. She was high energy and a typical teenager living on soda and snacks. At 5'2" and 86 pounds,
Oh, wow.
she was the president of the agriculture club. She was very active. And she was in the FFA, or the Future Farmers of America. She loved Willie Nelson and country music. Sarah was a freshman in high school. She was 15 years old. She was also part of the FFA, and she participated in basketball, volleyball, and cheerleading in her life. She was also 5'2", but she liked to eat healthy, and she was known as a comedian to all of her friends and her family. Sarah was best friends with Amy Ayers, who was 13 years old. She was born January 31st, 1978, and grew up as a country girl and a daddy's girl through and through. She loved animals and wanted to be a vet. She was, again, part of the FFA. They all are, actually. And loved to compete in animal showings. For 5 years, she did that.
That's cool.
The last girl is Eliza Thomas, 17 years old, and she is best friends then with Jennifer. They both worked at I Can't Believe It's Yogurt Shop together. They both worked at the yogurt shop together, sorry. She was born May 16th, 1974, and was also part of the FFA and wanted to be a vet. She had an 800-pound pig named Stoney.
Wow.
She was raising for a competition. Her younger sister, Sonora, raised, entered, and placed with Stoney after Eliza's death.
Oh.
Eliza liked reading, writing, and welding. She was a girl to get her hands dirty. My kind of girl. This tragedy, unfortunately, starts, though, on a Friday night for these girls. It's December 6th, 1991, in Austin, Texas.
Oh, right before Christmas.
Yeah. All of them, young girls, it's a Friday night. Let's make plans, baby. Let's go. So Eliza and Jennifer, unfortunately, they were both working on a Friday night, and they were closing for the night, but they're best friends, so they get to hang out. And Eliza and Jennifer, while they were there at the yogurt shop for closing, then Sarah and Amy were going to go to the mall that night. And when they were done at the mall, they could walk over to the yogurt shop and get a ride home then from Jennifer. And Sarah was going to spend the night then, or Amy was going to spend the night then at Jennifer and Sarah's house.
Okay.
So they were going to have a sleepover. So it was a good little weekend they were trying to plan.
Mm-hmm.
The yogurt shop, like I said, closed at 11, and all of the girls, the plan was they were all going to help clean up. Let's get out of here as fast as we can type of thing. Unfortunately, none of the girls will make it home that night. At around 11:45, an Austin police officer was patrolling the area of the yogurt shop when he noticed smoke coming from the building. So he called it in. Firefighters arrived and entered the building from the locked front door. It was an intense fire that seemed to be coming from the back room of the shop. The sprinkler system did go off, but there was a lot of damage, a lot of smoke. So to air out all of the smoke and stuff, they decided to open up the back door once the fire was contained, to clear out so they could see what they were doing. They opened up the back door, which was unlocked. And the first thing to come into view for the firefighters was a human foot.
Oh.
And as the one firefighter stepped back to take a different look, he accidentally bumped into an outstretched arm of another body. Officer John Jones was the on-duty violent crimes detective that night, and he was also along for a ride-along with the local news station.
Oh, jeez.
So this is it was all caught on camera when Jones got the radio of bodies found in the yogurt shop. I'm going to go over everything that they found at the crime scene. So I want to give a trigger warning, because these are young girls, and it's terrible. So trigger warning. So the fire caused a lot of damage, like I said, and the sprinkler system did go off. Plus, they also had the pressure from the fire hose from putting out the fire, and all of those firefighters who got there to do their job were not aware that this was a crime scene. So they're just walking around doing their job. So it was a very contaminated crime scene. They did not have any kind of good jump start at all trying to collect evidence, because it was, I'll post pictures then of the damage. Like there was a plastic phone on the wall just melted. Like it was an intense fire.
Yeah, and both the fire and the water would erase evidence.
Yeah. Yep. The front door, like I said, it was locked and the keys were left in it when the firefighters had to bust in. Chairs were also placed on top of the tables, so you could tell that the girls had started the process of closing. There was one table and chair that was not cleaned up, like all of the rest. After entering the front and heading towards the back, the first body Jones comes to is 13-year-old Amy Ayers. She was found lying on her chest with her right arm tucked under her in a clenched fist. Her left arm was reaching forward out in front of her. There was about an inch of water she was laying in. She was naked. She was beat by the cash register drawer that was found next to her. She was shot twice in the head by two different guns, a .38 and a .22. And there was a ligature found around her neck, leading us to believe that she was strangled.
So they did all of that and strangled her.
Mm-hmm. Amy's body was the least damaged in the fire,
Jeez.
but she did have second and third degree burns still. The other 3 were found in the back near the storage and the walk-in cooler, about 10 feet from Amy. 2 bodies were stacked on top of each other, identified as 15-year-old Sarah, who was lying on top, and 17-year-old Eliza, who was lying on the bottom, both face up, both bound by their clothes, gagged with their underwear, and a single gunshot wound to each of their heads.
Jeez.
Sarah was also found with an ice scoop left between her legs.
Ooh.
Next to them was 17-year-old Jennifer laying on her side with the same gunshot, bound and gagged. The back door was found unlocked, and a shell and a casing were found at the scene. They decided to do the rape kits there because everything was so contaminated that they didn't want to risk moving the bodies and losing the evidence. It was like a big argument actually at scene between the Jones and the coroner on doing that because that's not protocol.
Yeah. It makes sense though.
They took all the photos that they like, I mean, I would have done the same thing and I would have argued it too. They took all the photos that they could and all the samples that they possibly could. Like I said, it was very contaminated. So they didn't get as much as they probably would have liked to. They had a fire specialist take a look, but he found that no accelerant was used. The autopsies of the girls are still sealed to this day, and the only physical evidence is some Y chromosome DNA that was found in Amy's rape kit. But this DNA and the technology that they had back then in 1991, the samples could match thousands of men. They could not dwindle it down to, like, they didn't have that technology yet with what little DNA they had. The next step for Officer Jones was to talk to all of the customers that had visited the yogurt shop the night before. Jones learned that Eliza's parents had visited her earlier in the night around 9 o'clock. So I was glad to hear that, like, her parents visited her that night at work and got to, like, sleep there.
That's sad.
I know. He also talked to who they could find as, like, the final customer of the night. This is who they believe was it. It was a couple who came in to eat their yogurt there. And when they sat down where the woman was seated, she could see 2 young boys in the same booth that was not cleaned up at the crime scene.
Okay.
The couple left when the girls started cleaning up close to 11. So with the little evidence that they have, the theory that they did have was that at least 2 men were involved. And there's 2 guns.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. And they think, the couple possibilities they think is that they were already there and left out the back unlocked door when the crime was finished. They snuck in the back door and committed the crime. Or some people also have a theory that the girls knew who these boys were and let them in.
Maybe like classmates or something?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they were thinking.
Why do these young boys have guns?
I don't know. It's Texas.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure it was easy to get one.
Yeah. So they had robbed the place, raped and murdered, and set fire to the girls in a very small amount of time that night. But unfortunately, the lack of evidence, they did not have a good start in trying to catch the killers. And the amount of false confessions and bogus tips did not help. They set up tip lines, and got over 700 tips.
Wow.
Jones ended up connecting with Agent Richards from the FBI to get a profile for the killer. Agent Richards believed the suspects, because he also did agree that he thought it was more than one, most likely were white,
of course,
late teens to early 20s. There would be one leader who hates discipline, would have caused problems at home and school, probably lives with his parents, an underachiever, confrontational, likely has a problem with drugs or alcohol, someone who can't keep a job, and had frequented the yogurt shop. With the information and all the tips, Jones had over 300 suspects.
Wow.
He got through 35 of them in the first month and had 6 written confessions, including one from the first promising suspect, 16-year-old Maurice Pierce. He was brought in for questioning 8 days after the murders because the night of the murders, Pierce was picked up by police with a .22 caliber revolver on him, not too far from the yogurt shop.
Okay.
When Maurice was questioned by Jones, he named a few names and told quite a story that night. Maurice stated his buddies, Forrest Welburn, 16 years old, Michael Scott, and Robert Springsteen, both 17, borrowed Maurice's gun and killed the girls. When the boys were questioned, they stated that they were driving a stolen car to San Antonio that night. Jones believed the boys and did not think that they committed the crime, nor did he have the proof that they did it.
Yeah.
Jones remained committed to solving this case to this day. But after 2.5 years, he was reassigned because the toll it took on him was tearing his family apart.
Aw.
Yeah. Jones was reassigned, and there was different detectives assigned to the case throughout the years. And 12 billboards were donated with the 4 girls' pictures on it and the phone number to call with any information. This case ultimately went cold until September of 1999, when a new detective named Hector Polanco was assigned to the case. Just to give you an idea of the type of detective he is,
Great.
he was later taken off of this case because he was being accused of coercing a confession in a different case.
Huh.
So Polanco thought he was going to get something from these boys as previous suspects.
Yeah.
You know, Forrest, Maurice, Robert, and Michael. He was like, I'm going to get them. On September 9th, 10th, and 13th, Michael was questioned for over 20 hours, and so were the other boys. Well, they're not boys now, okay? So this is...
I was going to say, are they
were
minors
boys.
still?
No, they're not.
Okay.
So they're men now. So because this is 9 years later, so they're in
Okay.
their 20s. Yeah. So it's men.
Yeah.
By the end of the interrogation, 3 of the 4 of them confessed to the crime.
Wow.
On October 6, 1999, Michael and Robert were arrested. In 2001, Michael was sentenced to death.
Oh, wow.
Robert got life in prison in 2002. So now we're skipping ahead. In 2009, the Texas Court of Appeals found multiple problems with the trials, and also new and more advanced DNA testing proved that none of the men matched the DNA. So they released them and dismissed the charges.
Good.
But they spent 8 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They were waiting trial. They got tried and sentenced, and then the new when the Texas Court of Appeals, I'm sure they were appealing their cases, re-looked over their trials. They realized what, like, some laws were broken and like things weren't done properly, and then also the DNA, so they dropped the charges.
Reminds me of the West Memphis 3 case a little bit.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, you're right.
Which that case I might have to cover sometime.
I'm not ready for that one.
I don't know. That one, that's the case that, like, makes me so angry. Like, that's like my number one anger-inducing case.
I get it. Yes. So yeah, it was terrible. They still spent that time in prison, but they did get released. Even with the evidence, a lot of people, including some of the parents of the victims, believe that they had the right people. There has been no other real suspects in this case other than ones that I read. Okay, so I read about other suspects, right?
Mm-hmm.
I read their confessions, and they are total garbage. And it's disgusting that people would willingly come in and confess to these
Right.
things. And the details of things that they confess to doing to these little girls is horrendous.
Yeah,
Like, I cannot.
that always blows my mind. Like,
I
not taking into coerced confessions into account, but just people that willingly decide to do it on their own.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Like,
talking
what are you
about. Because,
getting
like,
out of that? Like, what?
Robert, like all those guys, their confessions were
Mm-hmm.
coerced. For sure. Like,
Yeah.
I believe that in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look up some of the videos. Like, they were of little snippets. They didn't release everything about the
Yeah.
interrogations, but to read these things that people like, to Jones and to the detectives that are on this case, are literally sitting across the table telling them these details. And, like, in the confessions, the reasons why I'm saying like they didn't mean anything is because there were some that literally didn't even say the right name of the yogurt shop,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know, or the right weapon,
Mm-hmm.
or the right things that the girls were bound with and things. So, like, that it was not true, but
Yeah.
they are literally going into detail of horrendous things, and I'm like, these people are so, there's something wrong with them.
Right. Yeah. It makes you wonder, like, what have they done before or have thought
Yeah,
about doing?
that you're, yes, and like, oh, it really, that's why I was telling you, this was like an emotionally taxing case
Mm-hmm.
for me to do actually so far, is because, like, it's
Yeah.
gross.
That's not stuff you
It's
want to read.
yeah. No. So it was, I had to take breaks. I was like,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, sorry, rant over. um where am I at? So none of the confessions that I could read, nothing in them ever brought anything vital to the investigation. 1,500 people attended the girls' service. On Amy's 14th birthday, the governor and 340 people planted a tree at Amy's middle school in honor of her.
Oh.
Eliza's mother unfortunately died in 2015 with no answers. And Maurice Pierce died in 2010 when this is terrible, when he slit the throat of an officer who then killed him in self-defense.
Oh my.
Yes. And that, unfortunately, is the end of that case. There is nothing.
Ugh.
So that is unfortunately the case of the yogurt shop murders. They have no suspects. There was no other updates. I did find an article that um, it. I couldn't tell whether it was actually an article that was a reliable
Yeah.
source or not. It had said in 2022 that they were going to try and retest the DNA to see. But I never found anything else besides that as to results, or if they
Hmm.
actually tested it or
Yeah.
anything. And like I said, that was 2022, and I couldn't tell whether that website was actually reputable or
Yeah.
not. So,
Okay.
yep. So a 33-year-old
Yeah. That's sad.
case. 34. It'll be 34.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really sad.
I mean, even if it was like a classmate, that's like a lot for like teenagers to do. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
to even use like an object on them to assault them with.
yeah. And the
Why are
bodies were
teenagers
two.
thinking of this? And what was their motive?
The other three The other three bodies were too charred to get any DNA or anything, but with how Sarah and stuff was found, they do uh, believe that all of them were sexually assaulted,
Jeez.
or at least three of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Why are
Um,
teenagers sexually assaulting young girls? I mean, it
I don't
certainly could
know.
be. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's not that's unfortunately not something that's never happened before,
Right.
so it could happen, I guess. But,
Hmm.
I I don't know what my theory is in this, to be honest, because there was
Yeah.
so much, like over 300 suspects,
Yeah.
and there was so many theories, so many people, the family thinking. I don't believe those boys did it.
No, those ones
Um,
that were arrested, no, I don't think so.
so I don't think that the boys did this crime.
I
But
agree.
some of the parents who still think that they did it, even though with the DNA, there is a theory out there of a fifth person theory.
Okay.
But I don't believe that either, because Maurice Pierce was so ready to snitch and rat out his friends so quick. Why wouldn't he just name that other name then?
Right, that's true.
So that's why I don't even think there's a fifth person theory that's valid in this to
Yeah.
consider.
And for the
I really think
parents,
the
I
boys,
feel like they were probably relying on what police were telling them at that time so heavily that it was hard
yeah,
for them to accept. Because I feel like that even happened in the West Memphis Three. Like parents were angry when they got released because they're like, "No, they did it," but like, "No, they didn't. There
yeah,
was no evidence." The police were trying to pin it on them because the chief was retiring and he wanted to end the case.
yeah. And
But I feel like
I
that's hard for
wholeheartedly
parents to
think,
accept. Like you were told this is what happened, but really it didn't.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't imagine. I literally can't put myself in the position of a
Yeah.
parent. So I think, like, Hector Polanco, when he got on the case, then I really think he was just blowing smoke up all of the parents' asses,
Hmm.
and he just wanted to be the hero
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. It was just like the West
Yeah,
Memphis Three case. That detective, it was his last case of his career. He wanted to solve it before he retired, and he was willing to throw anyone under the bus.
yeah. And I don't know if Hector, I don't think he was retiring, but,
Hmm.
he just, it probably would have been like his first big
Like a
case
big
or
one,
something,
yeah, where his name
and
would be known.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just terrible that, and that's also where the death penalty gray area for me comes in,
Hmm.
is like Robert was, I believe it was Robert, was sentenced to death.
Yeah.
What if it would have, what if they never would have, you know,
Hmm.
retested DNA or
Right.
anything.
Yeah. In that case, no, because like there's no evidence. I would never support death penalty for someone that had zero evidence against them.
Yeah, and actually the jury, they did go back and re-talk to the jury, and I think 7 of them said they would not have convicted
Good.
uh, the death penalty if they would have gotten the information about the DNA at the
Hmm.
time. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So,
that's crazy.
yeah. So,
Like you're
hopefully, in
like
this.
we talked in our true crime in a dime. That poor little boy was executed, and he there was no evidence against him.
Yeah. No, no.
So that
Yeah.
happens.
And that's where I
Hmm.
don't support the
Right.
death penalty. Of course, like, I want cold, hard proof.
Hmm. Yeah, there has to be
And
clear.
yeah. And unfortunately, in this case, there isn't any. And um, it just seems like all the evidence got washed away. I'm sure if things, and firefighters did state that they said if they would have known they were going into a crime scene, they would have done things differently,
Yeah.
of course,
Right.
but
Yeah.
they didn't know. And so I wholeheartedly in my heart think it was probably something that could have been solved, but I think this DNA can solve this case.
Yeah. And I'm kind of surprised that the police officer that called in the fire like didn't go scope it out first, because there's a fire
Yeah.
at a public place, even though it was closing. Like there could be people inside. To make sure that there was nobody injured over there because there's a fire at someone's place of work.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. That like, I don't know how bad it was when he got there, but
Right. Right.
maybe he could have. So yeah.
And I wish we knew who the boys were that were in the booth.
Yes.
Because there were witnesses that were
I
there
do
that
wish.
saw them.
Yeah, and I couldn't find anything of like them identifying anybody out of a lineup
Mm-hmm.
or being able to,
Yeah.
you know. But like if they have no one to pick them out, they had a lot of theories also because this is in Austin, Texas, that whoever did this crossed the border then.
Oh. I guess that's possible.
They had it. Yeah, they had a theory about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope it's solved.
Me too. Let's all hope
Yeah.
that soon, hopefully, with technology and everything, that we can solve this case.
Yeah. Yeah, there's too much unknown right now.
Yeah.
With no obvious
unfortunately,
suspect.
yeah. None. From 34 years this
Yeah,
year.
that's so sad.
This.
Poor little girls were just going to have a slumber party and they're murdered.
Yep. Just having a work night, you know? I know. So make like a shadow and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at
Lurking in the Shadows podcast.
Follow us on TikTok at
Lurking in the Shadows pod.
Send us a Gmail
At Lurking in the Shadows podcast at gmail.com. And keep lurking around for our next episode. Bye!